Well, hey there. Welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. It's another Sunday night at 5 right here on kerncast.com. How you doing today, Marshall?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, though? That's the question.
I am wearing shorts. I don't normally wear shorts. And there might even still be some remnants of some sweat stains on my shirt.
Oh.
We're doing a lot of work, manual labor work at the church, getting some stage things set up at the church and everything. You know, a pastor sweating at church without preaching. Like we have a few pastors that sweat while they preach, right? They got the holy rag and as they're speaking and stuff like that because the AC is not very, AC is not working very well or whatever the situation is. But yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff going on. I'm tired, but this show gives me energy. I really look forward to doing this. Look forward to coming to you guys. That's why we're here. We're here being civil.
Are we civil?
We're being civil. It got close a couple of weeks ago. It got close. I've
never brought boxing gloves into the forum. I'll tell you that right now. So just
I only did that one time. It wasn't really.
They sat over there for.
I wouldn't call it a threat
weeks.
per se. It was just I had the gloves on and I looked at them and like, do I look good in the gloves?
You looked fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all. That's all I was doing. Yeah. I wasn't the one who posted that week, are you ready for my fast hands? And
Yep.
I had to respond to that one. You guys can go back a few episodes. We're already on episode 18.
Is this 18?
This is episode 18.
Oh,
and
wow.
we're talking about, what were we talking about? Civility.
Civil disobedience.
And
when is it appropriate? Well, first of all, what is civil disobedience?
What is civil disobedience?
When is it appropriate? Is it ever appropriate? And to what level, do you take your disobedience?
Yeah, and again, this show in itself is it's civility on display. I mean, this is we're
an example of that.
Yeah, we are really opposed in viewpoint. You know what I mean? In what we believe and in a lot of ways that way, but we're still able to be civil. Not only just civil here. Literally, our family was at your family's house. Yes, on Friday, playing games, and if you saw that on Facebook, he has a Oculus
Rift. I have 2 of them.
Yeah, and yeah, bragging. No, and we were playing flight sims against each other, or trying to. It wasn't quite working out, but I successfully took off and landed an F-18. So,
which is pretty impressive.
I bet you I could do it in real life now.
Right, you're ready to go. Well,
Brad,
we're ready to go
hey,
here.
Hey, Brad, how you doing? That was my first boss, Brad Nelson, saying hi on there.
Awesome. Well, hello,
Oh,
Mr.
San
Nelson.
Antonio. He lives in San Antonio now. He owned the Pip Printing at the time when I was working there out of high school. He was my very first boss.
I remember when you were working there.
Yep. Crazy. Cool. Glad you found us there, Brad.
Awesome.
Hey, if you're out there, you watching, say hi. We've got you up on here. If you're
definitely
curious about
just
what we're
say
doing,
hi.
Yeah, say hi. Tell us, hey, I'm here. That would be great
Yeah.
to see you guys and say hi. But yeah, we are talking about civil disobedience. Let's define that a little bit, Marshall.
Well, in civil disobedience is one of those terms where it's defined in different ways by different people. It's really wide open to interpretation.
You're gonna tell me that everything is relative again?
Well, everything is relative. But basically, civil disobedience consists of breaking the law and usually accepting the consequences of breaking the law as a form of public protest.
Okay.
Now, there are other definitions that are a little bit more expansive. I mean, civil disobedience
that's a pretty
could include violent behavior.
Which would still be breaking the law. I think that still falls into, I think that's a very good definition of civil disobedience because there's a lot that can fall into there and still be
There's a couple of things that are,
Brad.
of caveats that are commonly offered up. One is you oftentimes announce your disobedience before you engage in it. You say that we're going to have a sit-in, we're going to have a march, we're going to do something like that. The other thing is typically
because it kind of disqualifies and we're just destroying things. Oh wait, no, it's not a riot. We are
right.
Yeah.
Oh, it was civil disobedience. Yeah, you can't claim civil disobedience after the fact.
It's like trying to claim. It's like showing up illegally to the border and trying to claim asylum. Anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, had to throw that in there. That was just.
All right. So.
Is it really that different?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that crossing the border illegally is a form of civil disobedience. But it's a different thing altogether. Yeah. And people are engaged in civil disobedience to protest the treatment of those human beings whose rights are being violated. And I think that's a great cause for civil disobedience. But that's my opinion, as well as the opinion of millions of fellow Americans. And I encourage you to keep up the good fight, because we've got to do something.
So what would be a good fight? What would you consider a reasonable good fight? Because what we're talking about, this again, kind of came from another show that's here on Kerncast. I can't remember if it was Inga Barks or Denise Gary or
what?
With Jazz McKay on, or is this
Jazz
his own
McKay
show?
Was on.
That's right. He had his own show.
On
the 4th of July, and he talked about this, and it kind of blew up on Facebook, and a lot of people talking about. But one thing a lot of people talking about his show, but one thing you pulled out of it was his discussion of civility. What happened to civility?
Right. There's a lot of people on the right, and Jazz McKay kind of underlined it in his show, and people are asking, what happened to civility? And these are people who are on the right who are asking this question. And the reason they're asking the question is over the past few weeks, members of the Trump administration, his cabinet, have actually been approached in public. We had Sarah Sanders was basically run out of a restaurant. And then Scott Pruitt was berated in public. And then afterwards, he actually resigned within days. Following that, I don't think the two events are related in any way.
This isn't even that new. I mean, they'd barely been elected, and was it Vice President Pence showed up for a Broadway show, and the whole like the cast
like they booed him or something. I don't remember.
From the stage, they said, we don't want you here, whatever it was.
Oh no, the one of the leads
actors
actually read a statement.
Yeah, out there.
He read a statement. Yeah. Now, I don't know how you would qualify that, if that would be considered civil disobedience, because there's no laws being broken. He's exercising a First Amendment right. And in the case of people approaching members of Trump's cabinet, I don't even know if that qualifies as civil disobedience.
Yeah, because even the person being berated necessarily wouldn't be.
They're not necessarily breaking the law. But then there was another incident where I think it was a person on the left approached a teenage boy who was wearing a Trump hat and took the hat and threw a drink at him, which is a form of assault. I mean, that's assault.
Yeah, theft and assault. Actually, now, they got it as a felony against the guy.
I'm sure that'll change. But the bottom line is now that's certainly not civil disobedience, because it was not announced beforehand. It was intentional violence against another person.
A minor.
So, a minor at that. So that certainly doesn't qualify as civil disobedience. But the question is a legitimate one. What happened to civility?
Yeah.
And for me, the threshold, when is it okay to engage in civil disobedience is going to come down to human rights, in my opinion. When it comes down to human rights, for example, I think a year or so ago, or actually 2 years ago, is the end of the Obama administration, we were dealing with the pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Yeah.
That has since, contaminated the water. Go figure. But the Dakota Access Pipeline that was being laid down, and the Native Americans who lived in that area did not want the pipeline running through their land. But because the land is technically federal land or something like that, I don't know what the whole thing is. Even
on a technical legal level, it was all land that was sold off to the government, and they were trying to claim an older, like it was iffy on the legal, but
the problem is
ethical.
The problem is you're endangering the water supply that the indigenous people relied on, and so a lot of people engaged in mass civil disobedience. They basically, using their bodies, blocked the construction crews, compelling law enforcement to use various degrees of force and coercion to get people to move, including spraying them down with a water hose in freezing temperatures, which, to me also borders on a human rights violation. Nonetheless, the government won that one. But that was civil disobedience. And in my opinion, that's justified. That was justified. I believe the indigenous people were justified.
Okay, so here's a question.
Protest.
Here's a question. If they declare what they're going to do and then do something illegal, which is civil disobedience, is it unreasonable then for them to be? Is it unreasonable since it is an illegal? What they're doing is illegal. Is it unreasonable for it to be broken up? or is it the duty? Is it still the duty of the police to break it up?
That's a great question because as an officer of the law, you're expected to follow orders, and you've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that includes following orders that are given to you by the executive.
Does the end justify the means? If it's a civil disobedience, should you not be punished for breaking the law?
Well, part of civil disobedience is accepting the punishment.
I think that is a critical part of civil disobedience that this generation doesn't recognize.
Yeah, look at what Dr. King did, when he was arrested.
Yes.
And he was put into, he even wrote a letter from Birmingham jail.
It was above everything else. It was what was considered the unjustifiable punishment, or
right.
It was the
That's what actually
punishment
created the sympathy that was necessary to create the change in society. Yeah. Exactly. So as an officer of the law, I think as an individual, you might be in a situation where you have to resign because on the one hand, it's one thing to say these people are blocking the bridge into, New York City and we need to move them off the bridge for their safety or whatever.
Yeah.
I get that. But it's another thing to say we're going to round up, people of this ethnic minority and put them into camps or something like that.
I don't see how the two relate. What do you mean?
Well, just following orders, right?
No, I'm not talking about just following orders. I'm saying, is it reasonable to break up the actions of a civil disobedience? Should the government still be responsible to uphold the law, even though the people that are protesting are, they have a right to protest and they're doing civil disobedience? Is the fact that it's civil disobedience, should that mean that the government or the authority should say, well, no, we can't break it up, or we're not going to break it up, or we're not going to put it down? Should they still uphold the law? And
well, that's the purpose of the executive branch, and the executive branch will usually uphold the law or their interpretation of the law, and it's always going to be different because the law can sometimes be unjust. And whether or not an officer of the law, I think that's a deeply compelling question myself. When should an officer of the law say, I'm not going to participate in enforcement of this law? In which case they will have to probably resign.
They would have to resign
resign.
You can't have it both ways. You can't.
Right.
Again.
But when when do you do that? And that's a question that comes down to individual conscience. And again, I think human rights figures mightily in that calculus. If you are asked to violate another person's human rights, and especially if it's indiscriminate, it's you're going against a whole group of people because of their affiliation with the group. You're not going against an individual where there is a warrant for this person's arrest or something like that.
Well, I mean, if it is appearing to be riotous, and you have to
you have to protect life and property.
Yeah.
When it comes down to a riot, which I don't think a riot is civil disobedience because it's mayhem. And civil disobedience is supposed to be mayhem.
Is any property damage justifiable?
Well, it depends. Yeah, I think so. I mean, like you might do graffiti on a federal building or something. You might burn a flag. You might, when it gets down to where you're turning over cop cars in the street or lighting cars on fire. If you are committing an act of protest against the material and apparatus of the state, there is a gray area there where it could be argued that it's justifiable. But when your violence begins to spill over to private businesses that have no dog in the fight, they're not really involved. They're really just bystanders. They're neutral. When you're breaking into people's homes, when you're destroying private property of people who have nothing to do with the protest, then I think you probably are pretty far over the line. And again, in those cases, yes, you want law enforcement to move in and protect that property. I would want my property to be protected. And if I were engaged in civil disobedience, I would not harm another person's property because, in my opinion, that would be counterproductive to the exercise.
What experience do you have personally with civil disobedience?
I don't really have any because I happen to be a privileged white male, and I've really had very little cause to engage in active civil disobedience. I also live in a community where the law figures pretty strongly in everyone's mind, and this is a fairly straight-edge community that I live in. I'm a fairly straight-edge person myself. So, fortunately, I have not had to engage in it, but I am willing to do so for the right reasons.
I did one time. Actually, it was when I was working for Brad Nelson at the print shop. I took an extra long lunch one day because at the time our church was feeding homeless people in Central Park by by R Street and 18th, 20th, wherever that park is right there, here in town, here in Bakersfield, and the city was shutting it down. The city said you couldn't feed the homeless people, so our church organized a march from the Central Park all the way down whatever it was, 20th Street, and then all the way down Chester, all the way to City Hall, which at the time was at Chester and Truxton, which I don't know if it still is now or not. But it was a march. We had signs. Literally, the chant was "Beans and rice, Jesus Christ."
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And did that. And I remember being part of that march. It was during the noon time. But I remember it being like it made it on the news. We did the whole thing to deliver a letter to the mayor to the mayor at the time to allow the church to continue feeding the homeless people there and stuff like that. But I remember it was, I don't know, several blocks long. But we stayed on the sidewalk. We used the crosswalks. We waited for the lights. We didn't block traffic. We didn't, you know what I mean? Like we didn't take over the street. We didn't bust things up. We didn't break things. But we visibly marched through downtown all the way to there. And I don't know if anybody remembers. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was how many of that at VBF at the time? Did it create change? It did. They allowed us to continue doing that. Later on, things I can't remember what it was. They started. It was years later that. Things happen, but in that moment, it's great, Scott. It's unfortunate. It's indeed illegal to feed homeless in public in many municipalities, and we had it turned around in that moment. But that's the only experience that I remember of civil disobedience. But we didn't actually break any laws.
Was anyone arrested or cited?
No.
Okay.
No. It was
pretty tame.
It's pretty tame. It was a public march.
It's consistent with our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the experience I have. That's what I know, that I personally get frustrated when people do block the streets,
Black Lives Matter did that a lot, right?
Well, here
I support that. I support blocking the streets.
I support them. I support them making what I don't support is the police standing there doing nothing. When people are breaking the law, arrest them. If they start blocking the street, start arresting them. That's why I led off with that question.
The police are often outnumbered. They can't just move in and put themselves into a dangerous situation. When you are dealing with an angry crowd, even if the crowd is relatively orderly, you have to understand that when you deal with people, you're not dealing with logic, you're dealing with emotion. And when you are, 10 police officers faced with a crowd of 1,000 angry protesters, you don't want to start putting cuffs on people until you are definitely certain that you have the upper hand, or you don't want to move in.
So we let the mob rule.
No, if there is, if the mob turns into a riot, then you have to move in and do what you can.
Why wait until it gets violent? When they're breaking the law, arrest them.
Because you don't want to incite violence if it's non-violent. I would ask somebody out there who's a law enforcement officer
I have a whole problem with the incite violence rhetoric. I have a whole problem with that.
Oh, okay. What are you talking about?
Well, the idea of, don't do that because you might incite them to violence. Don't start doing something reasonable and rational because they might react irrationally to it, and we don't want them to act irrationally to it. So don't do something reasonable and rational. What do you mean? Why should I limit a reasonable action, a reasonable response, just because there's a fear that they might be unreasonable? If they're going to be unreasonable, they should be punished.
Okay. So if you are a police officer and there are 10 of you and 1,000 angry people, should you begin to wade into that crowd and start arresting people? That could create a far more dangerous situation. It might be better to let these people have their moment, have their 15 minutes and block the road, than to wade into a crowd. To
encourage that behavior to happen again.
No.
Yes, what's rewarded is
this
repeated.
Is a tactical thing. It's not about right versus wrong. This is about doing what's smart. And it might not be smart to go into a group of people who outnumber you 10-1 with your baton or with your handcuffs. How many handcuffs do you have?
They use zip ties now, so they're almost unlimited.
Okay, well, but still, no. This is a police decision, a law enforcement decision. I don't have the expertise to explain the rationale as to when they do and when they do not. But what I have observed is when the law enforcement does move in, it's usually a very well prepared, very well organized, and carefully orchestrated event. And they do that to maximize safety, both for the officers and for the people that they're preparing to detain. And I support that. I think that's reasonable. Now, if that means that an intersection is blocked for an hour or a day, or in some places like with the Occupy movement, you might have a part of town that's occupied for even weeks.
There's no reason for that. Get them out. There's no reason to let something like that happen for such a long, to let that type of law breaking happen for that long. There's no reason to let that happen.
How about we don't want people to be injured?
You walk up and you arrest them.
But it's not that simple is what I'm trying to tell you. It
right,
clearly isn't that simple.
They don't, because,
otherwise the police would do exactly that.
Right, because the people are going to resist and break more laws.
Some of the people, are going to do that, and police officers' lives could be put in danger. I don't advocate endangering police officers' lives.
Hold on. I want you to think about that statement.
I don't advocate jeopardizing police officers' lives.
Their job is always their lives in jeopardy. That's their job.
I don't know about that.
Yes.
I would not reasonably expect a law enforcement officer to constantly expose themselves to physical harm. That is a part of the job.
Right.
And there are going to be occasions when that is asked of them. But
I don't think it's reasonable to say we're not going to uphold the law because we're afraid those people are going to be violent.
Shouldn't you be smart about it? Why wouldn't you be smart about this? Why not be smart? I mean, would you rather say, you know what, okay, you're going to occupy that park for a few days and get away with it than have somebody injured? Really, what's the harm in letting people occupy a park or close off an intersection? Yes, it's illegal. Yes, it's wrong in your opinion. It's certainly wrong under the law. But, oh well, I would rather be denied the use of a public space for a few days than to have someone end up in the hospital.
I would rather the rule of law happen so that people don't keep putting themselves in that position. You're going to encourage more people to break the law and encourage more people to take the risk of being injured when you don't put a stop to it.
People who make peaceful protest impossible make violent protest inevitable. That's Kennedy, and I've butchered the quote to a small degree. But basically, Kennedy said, if you prevent the possibility of peaceful protest, you make violent protest inevitable. And what's going on is you have a case where there's peaceful protest. Yes, they're denying the public the use of a park or an intersection or a building or whatever, but you have to let it be at least until you can muster the overwhelming force to move in and safely clear the area.
Not in the footage that I've seen. Not in the things that I've seen. I'm going to walk through here and people in the public being told you cannot walk through here because we're occupying this area. Well, I'm going to walk through there.
There's a reason why that's done.
Being violent. There's a threat of violence against an innocent person by the people occupying the place.
It's not necessarily a threat of violence. It could be a barricade or something. You're not going to drive your car through a crowd of people. That means you're not going anywhere for a while. The traffic is stopped.
You don't have a right to do that.
Well,
it's literally it's against the law. So no, you don't have a right to do that.
Correct. You do have a First Amendment right, but you're right. But the reason why such civil disobedience is practiced is so that other people can feel what it feels like to be disenfranchised, to be disempowered, to lose your power, to be powerless and hopeless. They are trying to get you to identify with that feeling because a lot of people who are privileged
a lot of them
do not know what it feels like.
A lot of them are just out there to be
disempowered.
Riotous. They don't care about that.
Yes, they do. That's the whole point.
You talk to most of them; they're just out there to be riotous because. I mean,
now you're committing a hasty generalization.
That's why I love that one where the
Have you talked to most of them?
That's why I love that one where the students
cherry picked examples, edited footage.
I like that one where the students that walkout day, everybody let's all walk out. It's like that
they walked out to protest gun violence.
They walked out but when the action that you're doing is beneficial to you, that's not protesting. Hey students,
what do you mean by that? Because
hey students, we're gonna protest today by not going to school, because normally you want to go to school, but now we're gonna suffer for the cause and not go to school today. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I won't go to school today, and I'm doing it for the protest.
But people have to do something that will be noticed.
No,
so walking out of school will get you noticed. Yes, it does have the side benefit as you don't have to sit through an hour of algebra.
But then
it
also
also
what it
gets
does
you
is it also artificially inflates the numbers. Let's do a protest that people are going to join us, not because of the actual protest, not because of the reason we're doing it, but we're going to pick a protest that will get us a bunch of numbers, even though they don't actually believe in what we believe. They just want to get part of what we're doing.
So what?
It's artificial.
So?
It's artificial. You're trying to make a statement that is not real. You're trying to say, look, a million people protested.
What's wrong with the statement that, we don't want to be shot in school?
No. The statement that a million people protest.
What's wrong with the statement that Black Lives Matter?
No, I'm talking about.
What's wrong with that statement, Scott?
No, I'm not complaining about that statement.
Okay.
I'm talking about the statement of, look how many people protest. This is real. This is a big deal. Look, a million people protest. No, about 10,000 people protest, and 900,000 people joined you because, hey, we got a day after school.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's the artificial that I'm talking about. Of like that, it ultimately doesn't mean anything.
I disagree.
It ultimately just shows that you couldn't have enough legitimacy in what you were trying to do, that you trumped up a way to get more people to join you because you couldn't get legitimate people to join you. So you do a protest that.
Let's test your argument. Let's test your argument for a thing called uniqueness. Could you make the same argument about blacks protesting against segregation and similar laws in the South? At one time, blacks were inherently a minority, and they certainly didn't have very many whites on their side. And so I would imagine that initially when they protested, you could have made the same protest against them. The only reason you blacks are doing this is because you don't want to work today. The reason you guys are doing this is because, the whites certainly, you don't have legitimacy, so the whites won't join your protest. Otherwise, everybody would be out, right?
Right, and that's what ultimately happened, is that whites did join the protest.
Okay, but it started from a small position. It started with a small group of committed people. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with any kind of protest or public movement. Look, it's going to start small. And yes, you are going to have people who show up because a variety of reasons. First of all, there are anarchists who turn up to these events and deliberately engage in mayhem in the hopes to incite violence. Mm-hmm. That is a problem. Black Lives Matter had a problem with people doing that, coming from other cities even.
So it was anarchists that caused all the problems at the white supremacist rally? Or were that white supremacists? White supremacists cause the problems, but when it's Black Lives Matter, it's anarchists that cause the problems, right?
If you are a white supremacist, I think you're inherently engaged in violence, just by definition.
But a black supremacist is not.
The blacks have a position of disenfranchisement in society. So unless you want to get into what black supremacy is,
Black Panthers.
Okay, well,
Power.
what's wrong with a movement that seeks to enfranchise itself in a state of disenfranchisement?
No, it's a movement, particularly Black Panthers, is a movement of destroying white people.
I don't know about that. I've never heard of anybody, neither
Kill
Malcolm
Whitey?
X.
Sorry.
No. I think that's out of context. I think the context
I just think it's interesting
we
that
want to
I just think
demolish
it's interesting
the apparatus
when
that keeps...
whites get together and something happens, it's because, they're white supremacists and they're evil. But when Black Lives Matter comes in and things get all destroyed, that was the anarchists. That wasn't actually the movement.
Well, no, I'm actually explaining to you an actual fact is that there were people who, and in fact there do exist people who are committed to doing violence and mayhem, regardless of the protest or the movement. And they show up to a lot of movements, and they are a problem for organizers of civil disobedience. They are a problem. I lost my train of thought. I was going to give you a list of a couple of
Steve's talking
things.
about it was on, I guess, I'm thinking he saw it on the news. The high school students walked out a few months ago, walked to Carl's Jr. and then back to school.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And absolutely, yeah, that's going to happen.
Like
but again, we're here to talk about ideas. There are a lot of people who are going to jump on bandwagons, and there's nothing you can do about that. But the ideas don't lose merit just because there are remora.
I'm saying don't lose merit by choosing a protest that's easy for that to happen. because then you are already going after the low-hanging fruit.
You
are
protest,
purposely going after the low-hanging fruit.
You choose a protest because the protest has merit. I don't care how many remora are attached to you. You know what remora means? Those are the little creatures that attach to shark. They're basically semi-parasitic.
Yeah.
You know, they're just they're literally hangers on. They're jumping on the bandwagon. On the bottom
when you see a shark and there's a little long.
That's remora. So I'm not going to, just because there's a lot of remora doesn't mean it's not a shark. It's still a shark. And the same thing, you have to test these movements based on the strength of their ideas. If the idea lacks merit, then you hit it head on and you dismiss the idea on the basis that the idea lacks merit. And you have to make the case. You don't dismiss a movement just because a bunch of people attached to it.
All right. So going off of this then, what Steve Ratliff said. What about La Raza?
What about it?
It's called the race.
Okay, good. So what?
So you're fine with people doing a protest for white people. We're going to have a white supremacist. How is that different than La Raza?
First of all, whites are inherently in the position of supremacy. We also celebrate, we have people who celebrate being Irish. Mm-hmm. We have people who celebrate being Italian here in our community. There's a large population of Italians who routinely celebrate their Italian heritage. Mm-hmm. You have people who celebrate, German heritage, Oktoberfest and things like that and so on. These are people who are celebrating cultures, individual cultures, and that's okay. When you celebrate the lack of melanin in your skin, that is not a culture.
Neither is the race. That's not a culture. That's a race.
The thing is there is a culture that is traditionally disenfranchised in America, which are these minority cultures. And I advocate that they do these things because this is how they secure their cultural identity in a space that they are traditionally crowded out of. If you are being crowded out of a space, you have to jostle forward and make room. And that's what the Black Panthers are doing. That's what La Raza is doing, although I have never heard of a La Raza extremist. But that's what these people are doing, Do
you need one? The group is called The Race.
That's okay. Let's talk about that. What are the ideas of the group? I don't want to get hung up on semantics over a name. I want to talk about their ideas. It's the ideas that matter. It's the ideas that matter. People hang up over Black Lives Matter because, oh my God, don't all lives matter? You're not focusing on the idea. You're focusing on a name. You need to talk about the ideas.
Right.
Don't let the name not
interfere
with the ideas.
Not even that. It's the idea is on Black Lives Matter, the source of where that came from. That is already, it's like when I say, are you a believer or a non-believer? The question itself already has the connotation that we're talking about a specific God and a specific thing.
Specific belief.
Very, very specific belief, that there's already the assumption that you should reject that. As an atheist, you should reject that question because the question itself already has the assumption of an answer. If I say, are you a non-believer?
Okay.
You as an atheist should reject that question. So when they say Black Lives Matter, inside that statement is the idea that Black lives didn't matter. And we're trying to say Black lives do matter. And that's what I'm talking about. It's the assumption that you all think that Black lives don't matter, so we got to stand up and say Black lives matter. That's already an assumption that I reject because I don't think that Black lives don't matter. So
Yet
I
the
reject
system is
that
inherently
assumption.
racist.
No, we've already discussed that.
We've already done this. And the system is inherently violent to Black lives.
No.
Well, I guess we're going to have to redo that show in a future episode coming up.
Because again, this was about, Black Lives Matter was about police brutality, and the statistics show you're twice as likely to be shot by a police officer if you're white than black. That's statistically true. But you would look in America and you'd look on the news and you would think there's an epidemic of police shooting black people, but the reality is you're twice as likely to get shot if you're white.
Regardless, shouldn't it be protested when it happens?
No, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about creating the false idea that the world believes that Black lives don't matter, so we're going to stand up and say Black lives do matter and make you feel like you're the one who's wrong.
Now that is a valid argument.
Make you feel like you're the one who's wrong.
That's what you do. You clash with the ideas. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to clash with the ideas, not dismiss something because you don't like the name. Clash with the ideas, and let's hash it out in the forum. Let's go idea versus idea and see which one wins. Yeah. That's okay. Now, I disagree with you. But I appreciate an approach where there's clash between ideas. And I think that's important. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about, Scott, was when should civil disobedience cross the line from nonviolent to violent? Should that ever happen? What if someone says,
I don't think that words can ever lead to violence.
Well, sure they can.
No, I'm saying, no. Still, fighting words are not fighting words. I don't believe that. I don't believe that there's anything that someone can say to me to where a justifiable response would be to hit them and be violent with them. I don't feel that there's anything that someone can say to me that would justify me striking them.
White privilege, folks. That's white privilege. Just letting you know. That's
Well,
okay. That's
so
if I
was black, then I'd be justified to hit somebody. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if somebody comes up to you and uses fighting words, yeah, you're right. That speech is not protected under the First Amendment.
No, they can be arrested, but it doesn't give me the right to hit them.
It
doesn't give words. Don't give words. Never give anybody a right to be violent.
I would disagree with you. There are circumstances where.
What circumstances could what somebody's saying justify you striking them?
If someone threatens you,
that they haven't done it. Threaten
he
me.
who does not strike first will be the first struck. That's in Roman proverb, right? If someone says, "I'm going to attack you," "I'm going to do violence to you," "I'm going to harm you," those are just words.
Yeah.
I'm going to strike first.
And that's fine. I'll call the police on you, and that's illegal to make those threats, and the police will arrest you, but I'm not going to strike you.
If that's an option, that's fine.
That's always an option.
No, it's not always an option.
That
really?
is always
Then why
an
do you
option.
own a gun?
Because it's self-defense. I will not shoot on somebody unless my life is threatened, not by the word. So you're saying it's okay if somebody says, "Hey, I hate you, I'm going to kill you." I pull out my gun and shoot him. That's justifiable?
If you believe that those words
carry
legitimate intent, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Just them saying it is not justifiable. I've been through the class. Just them saying it is not justifiable. It's not legally justifiable.
But the context matters, doesn't it?
No.
Doesn't the context matter?
My life has to be in threat.
Okay.
My life has
How
to
do you
be
know
in
your
threat.
life is in threat?
Because there is an imminent threat of harm to my body. Their words cannot harm me. I didn't say injure. Literally, it's bodily harm. The legal term is bodily harm.
Well,
their words cannot harm me. Words cannot harm anyone. Words cannot harm. You cannot get phically violent with anybody.
Do hurt. Words
they don't
hurt.
harm.
Yeah, they do harm.
No, they do not harm.
Yeah, they do.
No, there's
Really?
there is no word that
Wow.
can come out of my mouth that is physically going to hurt you.
I disagree.
I'm sorry. So there's words that can come out of my mouth that will physically injure you, physically harm you.
Yes. Yeah.
You are completely irrational right now.
No,
seriously.
Because you could cause psychological
That's
harm.
not. I didn't say psychological harm. I said physical harm.
Psychological
is not
harm
physical.
Results in physical symptoms.
No. I'm saying there's nothing I can do that's going to there's nothing out of my mouth that's going to physically harm you. You cannot logically in any way deny that. You cannot deny that any logical way that say words coming out are going to cause physical harm to you.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone ever said something to you that turns your stomach, that makes you sick to your stomach? Has anyone ever said words to you that makes you sick to your stomach?
No, I get angry.
Okay, well, there you go. There's a physiological response.
Psychological response.
It's a physiological. Anger is not just here.
Yes.
Anger flows through your body. There's adrenaline surging through your
my
body.
My
that is
body,
a physical.
My body is doing that.
Do we have any doctors in the audience?
The words are
any
not
psychologists?
Doing that. Listen up. No, I'm saying my mind is allowing those words to do that, to make me angry. My mind is allowing those words. It is what's going on in my mind that is saying
I agree with that.
Those words are harming me.
I agree with that, but not everyone is trained or conditioned.
But that's not the problem of the person who's talking.
Put a barrier up and filter those words.
That's not the problem of the person who's talking.
Well, you are responsible for your words. If you shout fire in a crowded theater, you are responsible for the harm that ensues.
Okay, I understand the legal responsibility. What I'm talking about is there is nothing that is justifiable that somebody could say to another person that justifies that person striking that person and being violent with that person. There's nothing that justifies that. There's nothing you can say to me that justifies me striking you.
Okay, well, we're going to probably disagree on this for the moment.
then
we're just going to disagree.
That is very surprising that you feel that it's justifiable to become violent because of something someone says.
Under what circumstances is violence justified? None.
Violence is justified when there is a physical threat of violence to you. If you say, I'm going to kill you, all right, I'm going to call the police on you. If you say, I'm going to kill you, and then you pull out a knife, I'm going to shoot you, because now there's an actual threat of violence to me. If you say, I'm going to beat the crap out of you, all right, when you start taking a swing, now I'm defending myself. But if you don't take a swing, I don't have the right to do anything to you just because you open your mouth.
Well, I think context matters. I do think context matters.
The only context that matters is an action happening. That's the only context that matters. Is an action happening? If they're saying all this stuff, that's just hot air coming out of their mouth. If they make a physical movement, now action is happening, and that's actionable. It takes an action for something to be actionable. And words are not an action. Words are not, there's nothing that you can say. Now, I may strike you, but I will not be justified in striking you. I could be overcome with anger by what you're saying and shove you and strike you, but I would not be justified to do that. I would be in the wrong.
So what about things like verbal abuse and sexual harassment? Those are just words. Should we not punish them?
Sorry, sexual harassment is not just words.
Well, it can be.
Okay.
And in deciding,
sorry, I was thinking sexual assault. No, you're right. Sexual
harassment. And in deciding a sexual harassment case, the judge is actually deeply interested in the perception of the victim, because that's actually the standard for sexual harassment.
Right.
Did the target of the harassment perceive that they were being sexually harassed?
Right. When that's wrong, you turn them in. I'm not saying you can't be arrested for your words. I'm not saying you can't be punished for your words.
But why would you arrest a person for just words that have no harm? Why would you arrest a person?
Because if it's illegal to do something,
if words don't do harm, why ever arrest a person?
Why ever have any law?
That's not the question. The question is, and I think it's a valid question, if words never do harm, Scott, why would you ever arrest a person on the basis of their words?
That's a very good question. Maybe the laws are unjust. I don't know. But I'm just saying, what I'm trying to say is, you are not justified in getting physical because of someone's words. Now, whether some of those words are actionable legally is based on the laws, and they would have to, whatever the laws are based. That is where context comes into play. That's where context comes into play for what is actionable legally. But what I'm saying is that there is no context in play for what is actionable by you personally to get physical. There's no, as soon as you acknowledge that there is a line to where words can equal and justify violent actions, then anybody can move that line wherever they want and say, well, he said this to me, so I punched him. Because it made me feel this way. And now it's on the purview of the person who, well, this made me feel this way, so I felt that it was justifiable for me to get violent. As long as you say there is that line, then people can blur that line wherever they want. There is never a reason to get violent because of someone's words.
Well,
There's
I do
never
agree that a lot of things
reason.
are certainly justifiable. So what if human rights are being violated? Is violence acceptable? We have a question here.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to hit?
Let's see. I think we kind of went past that one. Sorry, Steve. Talking about minorities and our white people minority. I think we kind of moved past that in the discussion. He's saying that we don't have intestinal fortitude anymore. That's what's lacking in children this day and age. There's no intestinal fortitude to say, well, whatever happened to sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I mean, literally. Say what you want. I don't really care. But as long as that line exists to where I feel justified at a certain point that I can hit you and can cause violence back to you because of your words, then that's a line that I can justify at whatever level I want.
So what happens if a spouse is being verbally abused for years and years and years and eventually snaps and kills her abuser? And then, should that person go to prison? And if so, how long should they serve? I mean, should it be a short sentence, a long sentence, life, death penalty? What do you do? Words matter.
Words matter. I agree.
They have an impact.
Words matter. Words have an impact. But you cannot ever say that there is a line that there is a line to where words can lead to violence. Once you say it's justifiable, that violent action is justifiable for someone's words, then that line can be taken anywhere where the victim says, well, it hurt me in this way, so that I punched him and beat him up because his words hurt me. Anybody can move that line wherever they feel hurt.
Well, hey, no, I imagine there's going to be a threshold. You're not going to say, well, Scott hurt my feelings, so I shot him. You know?
No, literally, that's where people will go.
Yeah, no, and I don't advocate that. And I really think things are very situational. I think you've said as much. But I don't want people to argue that any statement, any word in any situation is fair game. No, words do have an impact.
Words matter. I'm just saying words can never lead to violence, a violent reaction. A violent reaction is never justifiable to words.
Well, remember, words are key to persuasion, right? What if your words are inciting violence? They're just words. What if words incite violence?
That's where you can get into the legal. Okay, well, we can prove that you stood up on a box and it's recorded and it said that you said, hey, all of you people need to go over there and kill one whatever. And then people did it and they followed you. I believe that there is some legal culpability to you saying that.
Punching Nazis debate. Well, no, that's a thing. That's a thing. Certainly on the left is they say punch a Nazi.
Yeah.
You know, if a person
that's where it goes. Oh, you have this. Why not punch a Jew? What's the difference?
Well, first of all, Nazis are advocating violence as part of their identity. You know, there's nothing nonviolent about being a Nazi, whereas being a Jew is not inherently violent.
So, okay, go punch a Black Panther.
Well, I don't know that being a Black Panther is inherently violent.
It is. It is. When you look at what it is, yes, absolutely.
And
punch a KKK.
Do Black Panthers advocate for, your death? I don't know about that.
Look it up.
Okay. Well, and if that is the case, I'm not going to give people I'm not going to give African Americans a free pass either on violence.
I'm not going to give anybody a pass.
But I am going to give them a lot of leeway because they're entitled to it. They've been denied equality, literally. They've been denied equality and they've been disenfranchised. And I'm not going to perceive their struggle for equality as some sort of a twisted supremacy struggle, because that's not what it is. When you're asking for equality, that's not supremacy. When you're asking for everybody to be treated fairly, for white people to be on the same plane as everyone else, that is not disenfranchisement of white people.
Depends on what you're talking about. That would be absolute. If you say everybody needs to be on the same plane, I don't believe in equality.
I have a stack of job applications.
I don't believe in equality. I believe
in
equal opportunity.
And I'm going to evaluate these applications.
So if you're going to say, hey, these people are here and these people are here, we're going to make them equal by bringing these people down. They all have the same opportunity. They have equal opportunity, but they're not equal. So we're going to bring this person down to be on this plane. I don't agree with that at all.
Is it appropriate for a boss to go through a stack of job applications and wad up the ones with black sounding names?
No.
Okay. That's equality, is when you say that is unacceptable. And everybody's going to compete equally for the same job.
That's
you support opportunity. You support that. You support equality.
I support equal opportunity.
Correct.
Not equality.
Well,
equal opportunity.
Well, I support equality.
I believe now. Here's the thing. I'm talking about. I don't believe in equality among everyone. I believe that everyone has equal value.
Okay, I
Every
agree
person
with that.
has equal value, and I believe the law should protect equal opportunity because everyone has equal value. I do not believe that the law needs to protect to make sure everyone is equal. Being equal is up to you. Being equal is up to you.
I think it depends whether or not it depends. Like when it comes to a job, I want the job assigned on merit. When it comes to education, I want everybody to be treated equally.
I want everybody to have equal opportunity to education. But if that person doesn't study and they get an F...
I want everybody to have equal education, not opportunity.
No.
Opens up the door.
No, equal opportunity to education. What I'm talking about is I want everybody to have equal opportunity to education. Now, if you get an F because you're not studying, you don't deserve to get an A. You don't
Correct.
get equal students.
Correct.
You get equal opportunity to the students. That's the
Correct.
difference. The difference is that, and I believe,
But if a person's
legally,
getting an F, I want that person to receive extra help. I want that person to receive extra attention. Why are you getting an F? I'm not going to let them fall through the cracks. I want to bring them up.
okay.
So, but anyway,
Again, Josh, he says how we have equal opportunity without equality. I believe in equality of value, that everybody has equal value. I believe the government should clearly state that, clearly make sure that it happens, that everybody, and it's clearly say men, women, whatever race, everybody has equal value, equal rights to access, and we will protect equal access, equal opportunity. That's
Okay,
the
so
equality.
let me ask you this.
That's the equality I believe in. I believe in the equality of the value of the person, and I believe that because everybody has that same equal value, that everyone should be given the same opportunity. Whether or not you take advantage of that opportunity is up to you.
Now, you and I are running a race.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to run around the track one time to see who wins.
Okay.
For the first,
No,
100 meters or so.
we're not even getting.
Yeah,
No, because
For the first
that has
100
been
meters
fixed.
or so, I
No,
have
that
weights
has
around
been
my
fixed.
leg.
No, that has been fixed. You no longer have weights around your leg. You no longer have. I'm not even going to get into that right now because it's ridiculous. No, I'm talking.
That's not ridiculous.
No,
It's
I
how-
say
that's
it.
how
No,
things
right.
are.
No, right now.
I have weights on my legs.
No, you don't.
And so I'm behind
Nobody
you.
has legal weights on their legs
So,
anymore.
so
Nobody,
halfway through the race, you
nobody
say,
has,
you're right. You say,
no.
you're right. I'm going to take the weights off your legs, Marsh. And then we'll
But
continue
that
running the
person's
race.
no. That again, it's
'Cause
not
that's
equal.
what's
No,
happening
it's
in the
not.
status
No,
quo.
it's not. Every person every person starts their own race. You're
No.
saying You're saying right now
No.
this race of people is in one race, and now this race of people has been held back here, and now we need to adjust by giving them.
Yes, we do.
No, it's individual. That person's born there. That whole race. You run your race. There are no longer any legal things stopping you. There are no longer any laws, unjust laws that are stopping you. There are no longer any legal things that say you do.
But there are.
No, there are not.
But
There are no more laws that say if you're this race, you cannot do this. There are no longer any legal laws that do that.
You're right, but that doesn't erase
And
the
because
harm
of-
that's
because
been
of
done
civil- because-
for hundreds of years.
No,
Centuries of wealth accumulation.
No. Every person runs their own race, and how you run your race is how it affects the next generation. And we've been through this already. Again, I'm the one who comes from Mexican heritage. I'm the one who had Mexican relatives who immigrated, who ran their race better than the people around them, and gave my family, gave my father and my grandfather opportunities that they took advantage of. No, I will not let you wash away their hard-earned efforts to put my family where it is now. I will not let anybody wash that away. They made their choices. They made better choices than the people around them. They fought against the things that held them back. They made the better choices to put my family where it is right now. And that happens all over the place. And there are people who make bad choices, and you want to reward people with bad choices because of the color of their skin. You're a freaking racist.
No. I'm not saying that we should reward people who make bad choices. What I'm saying is
Yes,
we have
you're
to
saying
examine
if this is
the
the color of their
context.
skin, then they should
Are
be
you going to let
rewarded.
me respond? I'm saying we have to examine the context in which those bad choices are made, particularly when so many people from a particular race are accused of making those bad choices. And we've got to get to the bottom of why is that an issue? Why is that a problem? And I tell you, it's socioeconomic, and we do not have equality in this country. No, it is not.
Personal choice, and we
Who
have equal
personally
opportunity.
chooses to be born in the slums and to live and to have to claw their way out against all odds? It's very hard to do. You go be born in poverty and see what happens.
I'm not talking about them choosing to be born in the slums. I'm talking about what your choice is to get out. What choices are you making to get out? That's up to you. There is nothing anymore holding you back.
Okay,
there's
but
nothing
what if,
legally anymore
what if your
holding you back.
school is run down? What if your water supply is tainted with lead? There's all these policies that, while they are not on paper, on the books, racist, they have a racist impact.
But again, EPA and all that stuff is gonna get to that.
What, with Scott Pruitt? Good thing he's gone, but now he's being replaced with someone worse.
But what I'm saying is that the laws already exist to fix that problem.
But they're not fixing the problem. The laws are not working to fix the problem. That's the problem. We've done away with segregation. We literally have made it illegal against the law to be prejudiced. There's Fair Housing Act and all of this, right? And yet, every day in this country, people systematically engage in racist behaviors. Anyway, we've gotten away from the topic, which is civility.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, in the face of things like racism, is incivility acceptable? Is it okay to engage in civil disobedience? And at some point,
incivility is never acceptable.
So civility is always mandated. So should the Jews have responded to the Gestapo in civil fashion?
I believe
should they
the
have
people
responded to Hitler's early speeches in civil fashion?
I believe when war happens.
What about before the war? At what point should somebody have say, you know what, this is bad. I'm going to go from being Sophie Scholl, who was executed for civil disobedience against the Nazis during the war, to becoming Yvonne Stauffenberg, who, probably butchering the German, who actually put the bomb in Hitler's bunker. Would you say that von Stauffenberg was wrong? I don't think you would. I think you would.
No, it was war.
Yeah.
It was war.
Yeah.
War was already engaged. It was an act of war.
What if von Stauffenberg had engaged in his act prior to the beginning?
And assassinated him prior to the beginning of the war? He would have been unjustified.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you're right. Hindsight is 20/20, but that's remarkable because once you take that position, then you essentially are rolling the dice in World War II. And, you know, if someone had assassinated Hitler before the start of World War II, maybe, you know, all of this terrible stuff that happened would not have ever happened.
Yeah, but you can't take action against something for what they haven't done yet. That's
what if someone signals their intentions?
That's the liberal point of view. The liberal point of view is to punish people before they actually do something wrong.
Thought crime.
Yeah.
Right.
Punish people before they do something wrong.
But what if somebody signals they intend to do something that you feel is wrong, but it's perfectly legal under your nation's laws, but you feel it's
like abortion.
Wrong? Okay. So as a Christian...
So are you advocating that we should be bombing abortion facilities?
No.
Why not?
Because I disagree with your calculus. Maybe that needs to be our next topic.
Maybe it can, but I'm just saying, you're advocating you're advocating for people who believe that abortion is wrong. I'm asking the question,
when do you cross that line? When do you cross the line from nonviolent civil disobedience to violent civil disobedience?
I believe that your life has to be physically in jeopardy.
So when lives are in danger.
Lives are physically in jeopardy.
I think that's a reasonable standard.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Okay, that's been our 18th episode there. Kind of crossed some lines, and you can tell that there's certain things that poke me hard.
Thank you, Steve. I'm sorry we didn't hit all of your commentary. I'll kind of go through them and probably make some posts, but I do appreciate what you're saying there. I want you to know that everybody who watches this show will see your comments. Yep. And will be able to read your questions and interact with them.
Continue commenting after the show.
Yes.
We're gonna be on there. We're gonna be here next week, and then I'm on vacation, and we'll see what's going on.
You're on vacation the weekend following, so just be me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's gonna sit right there and then get up, walk around, sit over here, and like, no, Marshall, and then get up and have to go. It's good. It's gonna be like debate class where you have to debate both sides.
Right.
You're gonna have to. Now, Scott would say this.
Wouldn't that be an interesting show if I argue Christianity and you argue atheism?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I could.
I could.
I don't know if I don't.
But that's me.
Again, my whole thing. The reason I never really could get into debate because I don't feel that I can. I don't feel that I can make an argument for something that I don't actually believe.
Yeah.
And that's very tough for me. Again,
it's an exercise. And if you view it as that. And thank you, Steve. You're welcome.
Hey,
Stephen.
thanks for everybody participating today.
Josh, hello. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Josh coming in there. It's like high school all over again, man.
Right.
All the people we hung out with at high school. So join us each week, 5 o'clock, kerncast.com, a valid answer with Scott and Marshall. Closing marks.
Share this with your friends and get people to watch this. Share this with your friends and family and tell them about this great show. And if you have ideas for topics you want us to talk about, throw them out there and we'll probably hit them on a future show. And
email us at validanswer@gmail.com for topic ideas.
And you can also message us on Facebook.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right, see you guys.